Hi, I'm Beth from So Country, and today we're going to be working through the Luma Zip coin pouch from Bumbleroot Design. Now this is a free pattern and it's a very unique pattern. This pattern is different as in there is no zipper tabs. The construction has these really nice mitered corners on it. It's super simple. There's only two pieces to cut out. So it has a lot of great points. The thing I like about it though is it's very precise, meaning that she gives you very exact measurements, very exact steps, so it's easily reproducible in my opinion. So it's fun and different. It's not, you're not going to be turning this pouch like birthing it or sewing things right sides together and things like that. So we're going to go through this and walk through the steps. On mine, I did add this nice little wristlet strap here, so you can have that. And this is one that I did earlier. We're going to be sewing up a different one today. And as always, whenever I have a video, follow the pattern. I may say something wrong. I may give the wrong measurements. Trust that the pattern is accurate and that if I make a mistake, the pattern's right. So let's go through the way we're going to sew this. With this pattern, we only need two things. We need the exterior. With this pattern, we have to use raw edge materials, meaning we cannot use a cotton for the exterior on this. You can use a cork or a vinyl. Today I'm going to be using this cork. And we're going to have one piece of fabric for the interior. We're also going to have one zipper, and I did go ahead and make a wristlet. You do not have to make a wristlet for this. You can just use this as a coin pouch, but I wanted to do a wristlet for it. The first thing we do with this pouch is we make several markings on the back. These are given in the pattern, but I'm going to go over some of them to explain them for you a little bit. From the top edge, we're going to go down 1 inch and draw a line all the way across. On the bottom edge, we're going to go up 1/2 inch and draw that line all the way across. From our left edge, we're going to go in 4.5 inches and draw a line. I will say that I did make a small notch at the top of mine to see that 4.5 inch from my front. You don't have to do that. I just chose to do that. So 4.5 inches in from that side, 4.5 inches in from that side. And I'm going to be checking to make sure I get the measurements correct. This is 1 inch in from each side. Draw your line there. Now, I went ahead and made a line to mark my center. This is just to help me, but you don't have to do this when the pattern doesn't say it. I just did it for my own clarity. She also tells you from this 1 inch line down, we go another 1/4 inch and we draw a line between the two 4.5 inch lines to connect them. She also tells us to make a notation on this side with the initials RZ. And this is for the right side of the zipper, and this is for the LZ is for the left side of the zipper. I did make two little marks right here. Again, this is for me. The pattern doesn't say it, but this helps me. And you will see what all these marks mean as we go through this pattern. So don't be alarmed when you see all this. This is just how precise she created this pattern so that you don't really have any guesswork. Every time you put your needle down, you know where you're putting it. So it's really fun and cool to see it all come together. So this is what we're doing for the exterior. I'm also going to tell you a couple other things we're going to do for the exterior for our prep work. First thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a line to connect this line at the 1 inch down to the 1 inch in. We're going to draw a line right here on this side, draw a line right here on this side. Then we're going to cut these two corners. So let's do that right now. She tells us to be precise with this, so I'm not going to freehand it, even though it's a little slow. I'm going to show you exactly how I'm doing that. Okay, now that I have those marked, I'm going to simply clip and cut those corners. The next thing she tells us we need to do is we need to add double-sided tape. I'm going to add a line of double-sided tape across the top here. So it's going to be between this 1-inch line and the top edge. So I'm going to use 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape there. Then I'm also going to put a line of double-sided tape right here on the inside between this 1-inch line and this raw edge. Put a strip of double-sided tape on each side there. So you're going to see me do that, and then we're going to mark up our zipper. So let's do the double-sided tape first. You can see I put the double-sided tape from this 1-inch line all the way to the other 1-inch line. The double-sided tape is between the top edge and just above that 1-inch line you drew. We'll do the same thing on the sides now. And have my double-sided tape starting right there where the connecting lines are and going to the other connecting lines. So double-sided tape above the 1-inch line and inside the 1-inch line along the top. Below the 1-inch line, inside the 1-inch line. Here is our double-sided tape. Now let's look at our zipper. I already have my zipper pull on. I did go ahead and baste this edge closed. You don't have to, but I did it just because I didn't want to worry about my zipper pull falling off. I have my zipper pull closing to the left, and when I flip it over on my wrong side, on the top, I'm going to write LZ. You can see my zipper pull is closing to the left. The top says LZ. The bottom says RZ. You may not be able to see that clearly, but that's what it says. I'm also going to make a mark on the wrong side of my zipper that is 1.5 inches in on the top and the bottom. Let's take our lining and we're going to make some marks on the wrong side. I do recommend that you use a friction marker or chalk or something that can be easily removed, because if you use a permanent marker, it may show or bleed through and you wouldn't want that. So you won't be able to see my lines, but 1 inch down, you'll make a line across the top. 1 inch down, you'll make a mark across the sides. When you have those marks, what you're going to do is you're going to fold down both of your sides. You will see this in the pattern, but this is what it will look like. Then you will fold down your top and your sides, and this is what your lining will need to have done to have it prepped. So this is your lining prepped. Go ahead and set that aside. We do not use our lining until the end of the pattern, so we will use that later. The other thing we're going to need to get prepped is we're going to need some rivets. These are just my regular rivets. I'm just going to use a small 6mm. You will need 2 rivets if you follow the pattern the way it's written. I'm going to use 2 rivets, but I'm also going to use this, I think it's called like a a D-ring connector, but it's riveted on. This is how I'm going to attach my wristlet. You don't have to do this. It's just the way I'm going to do it. There's other ways to attach a wristlet with this pattern, but I'm going to be using this also. The only other thing you will need, lots of double-sided tape. We do not remove our double-sided tape yet. So what we do is we flip over to the exterior and we get our zipper and we place the exteriors matching. We're going to take that mark we made that's 1.5 inches in, and we're going to separate our zipper. She tells us to move that pull all the way back. At that 4.5 inch mark you made, you're going to line up that 1.5 inch mark. I'm going to go ahead and put a clip here to hold that in place. And then I'm going to go all the way down to the corner, and I'm going to make another mark right there. And that's going to signal where I'm going to stop sewing. I'm going to sew from that 4.5 inch mark down to the corner. I'm just going to base this on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I basted the zipper on 1/8 of an inch between those two marks I made. I did back stitch though. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my zipper going down, and I'm going to flip right sides together again and do the same thing with the opposite side. Lining up that 1.5 inch mark I made on the zipper with the 4.5 inch mark I made on my exterior. Again, I'm going to go to that corner. I'm going to make a little mark there. And again, I'm going to baste 1/8 of an inch, back stitching though both times. This is what you have right now. Let me clean up that stitch there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my zipper so it's flat, and I'm going to make 2 marks past where I just stopped sewing. So it's right there on the corner. So right there on the corner, I'm going to use my zipper tape, flatten it out. And I'm going to make 1 mark that is 1 inch away from where I stopped sewing. And I'm going to make a second mark that is 1 1/4 inch away from where I stopped sewing. I'm going to do that on both sides. So there it is on this side. Flip it around and do the same on the other side. I am now going to flip over to the wrong side of the exterior. I'm going to remove my double-sided tape along the top edge, and then I'm going to fold this top edge down. When I'm folding it down, I'm folding the raw edge of my exterior directly on to that line that I drew earlier, the 1 inch line. this is what we have so far. Now, if you remember, I drew 2 lines, the black marks you can see here. This ends up being 1.5 inches. I'm going to top stitch between these 2 black marks, which will end up being, like I said, a total of 1.5 inches. I'm going to actually do this from the wrong side. So I'm going to top stitch along here. I'm going to do 1 row of top stitches 1/8 of an inch away. The second row I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch away. The reason why I'm sewing it from the wrong side is so I can make sure my zipper tape does not get in any of that top stitching. I do not want to catch it at all. It needs to stay pushed down and out of the way. You can sew it from this side. Just make sure your tape does not get involved in those stitches. So this is kind of fake stitching, I want to call it, just for aesthetics. So that's what we're going to do. Moving it down and sewing in between those lines. You can see me moving my tape, my zipper tape over and getting right in there. Okay, my top stitching is done, and so we did 1 row at 1/8 of an inch, 1 row at 1/4 of an inch. Okay, the next thing the pattern tells us to do is to fuse a piece of interfacing right below here, because we're going to be attaching a rivet here. I'm not doing that, but you can go ahead and do that. I'm just not doing it for the purpose of this video, but it is just to help the stabilization so that the rivet does not pull through. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add a small piece of double-sided tape to each side of the zipper. So to this right side here. When I attach that tape, what I'm going to use it for is to secure my zipper down. You do not have to add that double-sided tape if you don't want to, but it's just going to help me when I am putting the ends of my zipper tape down. The main goal is to curve this end down so that the teeth are right around this intersection here. Once we have both of these down, then what we're going to do is we're going to rivet it in place. I'm going to put a rivet right here. The rivet I'm going to use is the one with the D-ring attached, so that I can snap my wristlet on there. If you don't have this or want to use it, you can just use a regular rivet. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to take this over to my rivet press and secure that rivet down, and then I will come back for the next step. My rivet is attached. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my exterior and fold it right sides together, and I'm going to take some care to make sure I line up my 2 edge corners. I'm going to put a clip right there. Then I'm going to come to the bottom, and I am going to sew directly on this line that I drew. This is the 1/2 inch line at the bottom. I'm going to make sure I back stitch at both ends. After stitching, I'm going to just clip my corners, making sure that I do not clip my stitches. Now at this point I want to open the seam, and I'm going to use a line of double-sided tape on both sides of this seam just so I can stick this seam up so that it helps the pouch lay flat. This is not something you have to do, it is just a preference I want to do. When I am pushing my seam down, you will see me lift up this edge of tape so that it's not stuck underneath that seam. I am now going to fold this open, is remove the double-sided tape from the edges we have it placed here and fold these edges down. This is going to create our mitered corners on our exterior. So I'm going to take time to make sure that I get a really nice edge on my corners. I'm going to go ahead and put a clip right there to keep that in place. Now at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch this area right here. This is just like we did in the front. This area right here is not going to get stitched together with our zipper. So I'm going to make my marks again, and it's going to be a 1/2 inch wide, so 3/4 on each side from this seam. And then I'm going to top stitch 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch just for the aesthetics of this bag. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to turn everything out. And I'm going to take time to poke out my corner edge right here. Now at this point you can add more double-sided tape along these edges to help you secure your zipper down. I am not going to do that. I just didn't feel like I needed to, so I'm just going to move forward without it, but you can do it. Now, this step is going to involve those 2 lines we made earlier on our zipper, the one that was 1 inch away and 1 1/4 inch away. What we're going to do is we are going to curve this zipper around the mitered corner. So when we come to the back, we want to try to see which of those marks fits best. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that 1 inch, and I'm going to pull it down to that raw edge and then flip it over and see how that looks with my corner. Okay, that's a little too tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that 1 1/4 inch mark. And so what she does is she gives you 2 marks to see which one kind of fits the best, because you don't want the curve too tight. You want the zipper to be able to flow around that curve. So this is what I want. I want to see that nice rounded zipper with that corner right in the peak of it. Okay, so that one looks good. I'm going to go ahead and put a clip right here because I don't have double-sided tape on mine. And then I'm going to go and do the same thing over here. So now that I have this zipper clipped on, I am going to sew and attach the zipper with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing right here where this top stitching ends, go all along this top edge, pivot, go down to where our other top stitching is. I'm not going to go over either of the top stitching that we've already done. That's going to be my stop and start point. I'm also not going to do the other row of top stitching yet. That will be used to attach our lining. Also, she says in the pattern that you can turn, that it's sometimes easier on a flatbed machine, to turn this inside out and do it. I'm just going to do it right side out, but definitely feel free to turn it inside out if that's easier for you, and to top stitch that way, because it is a little tricky getting in there this way. I'm just going to do a quick test to make sure I did not get too close to my zippers and that everything can sew. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, now a couple of things she suggests is to go ahead and put another piece of stabilizer here, like a Decaville Heavy or Light, for your rivet. Again, I'm not going to do that, but you can definitely go ahead and do it. Also, she tells us to put 2 pieces of double-sided tape on the inside exterior. This is to help hold the lining in place securely. So I am going to do that now. And just to help me out whenever I'm not worried about where I place the double-sided tape, because it's just to secure the lining to the exterior. Now let's pull out our lining. I've already told you and went over how we prepped that. So let me just open that up so you can see. This is what our lining looks like. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and fold it right sides together. And I'm going to match up the bottom. I'm going to open up my bottom seams. And I'm going to sew across this edge. I think it's at 1/4 of an inch. Let me just check and make for sure. Yes, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance just along this bottom edge. Back stitch when you start and stop. Okay, I'm going to fold my edges back down. And then I'm going to add a piece of double-sided tape right here to help adhere this to my exterior. So this is what we have right now. We're going to leave our lining wrong side out and have our exterior right side out. And we're simply going to fit these in there. Okay, before we take off our double-sided tape, we're going to use our finger and push that into the corner and get everything to line up properly. I want the top of my lining to sit right below that row of stitching, so that way whenever I stitch on my exterior, that other row, it'll catch it perfectly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take off one side of my double-sided tape. I'm going to work with one side at a time. Once I take off this side, the double-sided tape, I'm going to again use my finger to push down that corner, and I want to start clipping. Let me use my bigger clips here. And let's just cover up that row of stitching and use my finger to adhere it. Push it down. Do the other side the same way. We're going to go ahead and use that other piece of double-sided tape to affix it to the lining, to the exterior, because we've already got our stitches here and this part will not be stitched across again. So now what we're going to do is just repeat what we did earlier. We're going to open this up and we're going to start stitching with that other row of top stitching. It's going to be 1/4 of an inch away from our edge now, or 1/8 of an inch away from our previous stitching, and just go along to this side, pivot, and then come back down to meet to our other row of stitching. We're going to do that on both sides, and that will fix our lining to our exterior. We have our lining attached. Okay, now that we have our lining attached, the last thing we need to do is to finish off the zipper. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my zipper up out of the way, and I'm going to trim off so that it only extends about 2 inches from my exterior. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push my zipper in between my exterior and my lining. I'm going to take a minute to get my zipper to curve out the way I want it to curve. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is she tells you to, we're going to secure the zipper, the lining, the exterior, everything with a rivet. And she just says to put it a little bit off center, because if we put it right here in the seam, then that has a chance of degrading the stitching here, and this could open up. I don't like just one, so I actually have been doing 2 rivets. I have small rivets, so that works. If you only have a big rivet, that would not work. But I'm going to do 2 small rivets on each side. This step I do feel like is the trickiest, just because it's a little hard to get in the pouch and get it in there. So I will try to show you this on the camera, but it might be a little hard to see. I'm sorry, my camera actually started overheating while I was doing the rivets, so I apologize for that. But I did get the 2 rivets on and have them secured. I do have the lining in place. The only last thing I need to do is just to attach my wristlet, which you don't have to make, it's just something I wanted to do. Anyway, this is the Luma Zip Coin Pouch from Bumbleroot Design. You can find this in her Facebook group, the link in her Facebook group, and this is a free pattern. It's super cute, it's super fun, and you will learn a lot of new skills by sewing it. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. Thank you so much for watching, so much for sewing with me, and if you have any suggestions on another tutorial you would like to see, let me know, and I hope you have a great day sewing. Thank you.